you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda that's almost 2 pages long?
So moved.
Tim, is there a second?
I'll second.
Lauren?
Laurel.
Any other?
Laurel.
Laurel. Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion. Meg Scattle.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Stacy? Any further discussion?
Do I need to abstain if I was not present for the last meeting?
No.
No. Okay.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Audience of citizens.
Yeah, come on.
If you can come up to the podium, that'd be great. That's okay.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I'm Candace Crane, the Vice President of Youth Development and Community Relations at the Middlesex YMCA. And tonight we are actually holding our annual meeting out at Camp Ingersoll. So I came rushing over here, a little dusty because it's real dusty and windy out there today. So I apologize for that. But we were excited because during our annual meeting, we look back on the year past and all the good things that the community has done and things that have happened. And we always give awards out to people in the community that are nominated. We give awards out to a couple of staff and then some community partners. And the Youth Development Department at the Middlesex Y was very excited to nominate Dr. Britton to receive an award. We have had such a just truly wonderful relationship, which does not come easy between the YMCA and superintendents sometimes. Superintendents have very busy jobs, focusing on what they're supposed to focus on, and they don't always see the natural partnership that's there. But I think due to Dr. Britton's very long, I recently learned, very long history with YMCAs throughout Connecticut, he saw it right away. From the minute he became superintendent, during a pandemic, right, how crazy, we hit the ground running together, and it's really been wonderful. And in 2021, he did such a great job of every time I called saying yes. Really didn't matter what I was asking, he was like, how can we do it? How can we do it? We brought new grant money into the district together, which is fantastic, serving more children. We just recently received another large grant to serve more children. The Department of Ed just told us this week we got summer camp grant to serve more Portland children. Like, this is all stuff that wasn't really happening before. And we're really excited about it. And it would not have happened without Dr. Britton's partnership. So we are very excited. He would have received his award at the annual meeting, but he was like, no, I'm gonna be here. I'm like, I'm coming. This is gonna be great. So our CEO did a wonderful speech about him to the people that are back at Ingersoll right now. In her words, she said, Portland is lucky to have a superintendent as wonderful as Dr. Britton. And she's been lived here in the area for her whole life, and she's been with the Y for 30 years. So her saying that is huge. And so everyone there was very excited. They applauded and everything, and then I ran off with the flowers and the award. So we are super excited. We look forward to many more wonderful years of partnership with him, but we were very happy to honor him with a Better Us Award because he works very hard to better our community. So thank you very much.
You guys are the best. I love the YMCA. I do have a long history with the YMCA. I ran your camps as a counselor for more years than I've been a teacher and educator.
Yes, if this superintendent doesn't work out, let me know.
Well, hey, you haven't seen the link of the agenda. I might just be there.
Can we get a picture?
Thank you,
Can we get
Candace.
a
Thank you.
picture
Thank you.
real
Thank
quick?
you.
Dylan, can you take a picture? So we can put it in River East? Yes.
His flowers are very fresh, full of water. Photoshop that water out.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes. So nice.
Thank you, Candace. Go back and pick up the camp.
Thank you for coming and doing this here. We're all very happy to hear about it. Thank you.
Lovely.
That's
Bravo.
nice. I love the, thank you. I love the YMCA. It's the best. I do. Right? That's very nice.
That's really pretty neat.
Okay, next is the Portland Public Schools Spotlight.
Hold on. Are there any other audiences?
None in the chat. Now we'll move on to Portland Public Schools Spotlight. WellStat, District Health and Wellness. John White from Sodexo is here.
Hi, John.
Hello.
Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. So, tonight we're going to talk about the Portland Triennial school wellness policy. The purpose of the district health and wellness policy, excuse me, is to ensure that school districts have a comprehensive plan to support student health. Current federal regulations require that districts create a committee of key stakeholders and write policy that addresses multiple domains of health promotion that include nutrition, standards for USDA child nutrition programs, nutrition standards for competitive foods, physical education and physical activity, wellness promotion, marketing, and implementation and evaluation and communication. In order to accomplish this, the Department of Health, the Department of the USDA final rule and school wellness policy implementation requires that each local education or authority participating in the National School Lunch Program and the School Breakfast Program must complete an assessment of their local school wellness policy at least once every 3 years. There are 4 steps that are required to accomplish this. Step 1 is to complete a WellSat 3.0. That's a quantitative assessment of the local school wellness policy using the WellSat 3 to assess compliance with the federal requirements. So what that does is you take the WellSat 3 assessment and take the Portland wellness policy and compare the two and see how strong or weak or what needs to be improved in that. Step 2, we needed to complete a WellSat-I. And with the WellSat-I, what we did was go out to the district and talk to the stakeholders to see if what we say in the policy is being implemented out in the field. So it's, what's really happening out there. Step 3 is identifying connections and comparing the written policy to the practices. And step 4 is the summarizing and sharing of our findings. The WellSat scorecard is a quantitative assessment. Like I said, it's a tool that helps school districts score and improve their local school wellness policy. Since 2010, thousands of people have used this tool across the country, representing the school districts from every state. All WellSat items reflect federal law or best practices. The purpose of scoring a district policy is to identify where it is strong and where it should be improved. The scoring is, you score a 0 if the standard is not mentioned, or you score a 1 if it's a weak statement, or score a 2 if it meets or exceeds the expectations of the policy. Next, I'm not sure if you have this scoring sheet. Yeah.
We have
okay.
copies of it, yeah.
Gotcha, okay. So what this is a comparison of the WellSat 3 and the WellSat-I scores, giving us an understanding of what we have, what policies we have that are strong, what needs a little improvement, and which ones are weak and need some tweaking at that point. So going further in, we summarized after we did the WellSat 3 and the WellSat 1 what our strong policies and aligned practices were. So on the first line, we have here any 1, any 3, any 4, and any 5, which relates back to the nutrition education program. So any 1 is, does the school district have a specific goals for nutrition education? Any 3 is, do elementary schools receive sequential comprehensive nutrition education, and so on. These policies we deemed that were strong in both practice and in the policy. Portland schools at all grade levels receive sequential and comprehensive nutrition education. Our district has specific goals designated to promote student wellness. Portland School District, going on to Section 2, standards for the nutrition program. Portland School District ensures that students receive free and reduced benefits that they cannot be identified. All Portland all Portland schools offer breakfast to students when school is in session. And S1 is the nutrition standards, and Portland certifies annually to the Connecticut State Department of Education that the district will follow the Connecticut nutrition standards for all foods sold to students separately from reimbursable school meals. The PAPA section is the, at the bottom of this page, physical education and physical activity. Portland students at all grade levels receive sequential and comprehensive Oh, I'm reading the same thing again. Nope, down here, John. Okay, all Portland and elementary school students receive at least 20 minutes of recess daily, and WPM, Portland school staff are encouraged to model healthy eating and physical activity behaviors in front of students. The next page, section 2, gives us areas where we need to create better practices. I'm not going to read all of these, but some of them include that the Portland Wellness Policy links nutrition to school environment. However, through this assessment, it was identified that improvement is needed in connecting nutrition education with food and beverages that are in the school. The district policy is outdated and needs to be revised with updated HCFA requirements. The current policy lists My Pyramid, which was replaced in 2011 with My Plate. Portland certifies annually to the Connecticut Department of Education that the district will follow Connecticut nutrition standards for all food sold to students separately from reimbursable meals. And moving on to scores that policy needs to be updated. Portland Wellness Policy will be updated to address nutrition education that addresses agricultural and food systems. Portland Wellness Policy will be updated to address the frequency and amount of training provided to the food and nutrition staff that meets the USDA professional standards. We do that in practice, but it's not in the policy. Portland Wellness Policy will be updated to address food and beverages for fundraisers and foods and beverages containing caffeine sold at the high school level. Through this assessment, we have identified that our policies need to be updated to address the educational classes that are taught by state-certified licensed teachers, that a PE substitution is permitted when students are engaged in other physical activities, and allowing community members to use indoor-outdoor buildings when the school is not in session. And going on to the last area, opportunities for growth, is basically what this is saying is that our policy is outdated and we need to revamp it. And working with Stephanie, she has a good policy from Cape that will be used going into the new school year when we revitalize the Wellness Committee with our new assistant principal.
Soon to be.
Did I misspeak? Into the next year, and we'll probably be asking for a volunteer from the board to be on the Wellness Committee, along with some teachers, parents, students, and whatever, because we have to have a well-rounded community to support the school wellness. Any questions?
No, I'll just say that we started this process about 2 or 3 years ago, John.
Yes, we
and
did.
Knew that this was coming, and the policy,
Yeah.
we have the CAPE policy sitting in a file, so we'll work on it, and we're happy to see it come back.
Yeah,
Very important work.
yes, it is. I remember those meetings.
Yeah, and like you said, we're very excited to welcome a new administrator to the district, and he will be in charge of high school athletics and is a perfect fit to help us chair that wellness committee, understand the policy implications, and guide our work, making sure that all of our students are provided the appropriate nutrition and physical exercise and otherwise that we're educating well-rounded kids.
Very good.
Yeah. Thank you for your work on this. I know it was a lot.
Not a problem. That's what I do.
Yeah.
Any questions? We're good?
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank
Have a good
you.
rest of your
Thank you,
meeting.
John. See you soon.
Student representative reports. Do we have anyone with us today? Great.
Hi.
Hello.
So seniors have their finals this week and underclassmen have their finals next week. This Friday is our end of year field day and we will be celebrating a successful year and give the seniors their final goodbye. Tomorrow is sports awards and graduation is next Monday, and also the golf team just won their state championship.
Repeat.
All right, and then today, the Unified Sports Team also has their end-of-the-year competition, and teachers as well as a few students came out wearing red and black to support the Unified basketball game. The students played against their parents, and then at the end of the game, each athlete received a medal as a recognition to their commitment to the team this year. And then secondly, this is my final meeting with the board before graduation next Monday. So I just wanted to take a moment to thank you all for giving me this opportunity to be here and represent my school. It's been very unique and I'm really grateful to be here with you guys. And next year I'll be attending the University of Vermont up in Burlington, where I'll be studying business and running on the cross-country and track and field teams. And again, I just want to say thank you and I appreciate all that you guys do for our school system.
Well, thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us every week, just about, every meeting. We appreciated your input and best of luck.
Good
Thank
luck.
you.
Enjoy Burlington, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Communication and updates.
Okay, couple communications for you. Just want to let you know, we did receive a letter of resignation from Anna Dilly. Anna was a paraprofessional with our school district. She's going on to continue her education, and we wish her all the best of luck. She did a wonderful job for us. Also received a letter of resignation from Melissa McManus. Ms. McManus was a English/reading teacher at the middle school. So we have now posted and are selecting a new reading teacher for Portland Middle School. We wish her all the best of luck. And you'll notice in here a very important letter of retirement from Meg Wright. So Meg has notified us that she will be retiring not until November, okay? But she did want to notify us now of this. Certainly, we know how important her role is to the board and to me, so we have some very big shoes to fill, and I'll be looking forward to finding a hopefully ample replacement, and we'll be inviting the board certainly to help me with that selection. But we have some time to celebrate with Meg, but you know, big shoes to fill, and we'll miss Meg when she's gone, but we got a few more months with her. So, okay. Otherwise, I did include the final enrollment of the year. That's in your folder. So we ended the year right around where we started it. Like I said, the enrollment is pretty stable in the district. I am watching the kindergarten enrollments. We'll know more in August, but it looks pretty good right now. And by good, I mean, I don't know if we're going to need another kindergarten teacher at this point. I don't think so, but that's one of those X factors that we watch very closely, so I'll certainly keep you posted on that. Aside from those things, the only thing I want to really include in my remarks tonight are the recognition of this year's retirees. So I spoke with all three of our retirees tonight. Unfortunately, they couldn't be here this evening. They had other things going on, but all three of them were recognizing this week with parties and celebrations. So I just wanted to kind of read into the record and share some thoughts and reflections on the outstanding service that each of these individuals have provided the district. And I will certainly make sure I pass along our congratulations. And I know that they're going to be watching this tomorrow, so they'll be able to hear us say some nice things about them. So our first retiree is Cynthia Rustig. So Cindy, for those of you who may or may not know, is an administrative assistant at Brownstone. So Cindy was born and raised in Middletown, and she's been a Portland resident here for the last 35 years. Right? So Cindy's started her service in Portland in 1993 when she was hired as a secondary school administrative assistant working with Don Gates and Mike Sidodic. Prior to serving in Portland, Cindy worked at Xerox and the Weekly Reader for 19 years. In 1998, Cindy was transferred to Gildersleeve, where she worked until 2015-16. And then for a short time, she was shared between Gildersleeve and Brownstone. And since 15-16 school year she's been at Brownstone. I spoke with Cindy today and asked her, I was just curious, I said, since, all of her 35 years here in Portland, and her experience in the school districts, what she'll miss, what she remembers most, and how things have changed. Cindy laughed and said, not much. Portland is now and has been for a very long time a wonderful place. She reflected on how many families she's worked with and gotten to know both as a parent and a member of our school district, and she loves it. Right. The one thing she misses, though, and some of you may laugh, I didn't know they used to do this, was she reflected and told me some really great stories about how they used to close Main Street and have a big block party. Does anybody remember that? They haven't done that in a while, but that was one of the things she remembers very fondly. I'm not sure when they stopped doing that, but hey, if there's a plug out there, let's close Main Street and have a block party again and invite Cindy. She remembers that fondly. Cindy's done a wonderful job for us. I wish her well, and on behalf of all of us, I want to make sure we extend our congratulations to her for 29 years of service to our school district. So congratulations, Cindy, and we wish you all the best. Oh, no.
Are we okay?
You okay?
We're good. Zoom just can't see all of you right now. They can hear you. YouTube could see everybody.
Okay, so as long as we're getting the recording of this, because we want to make sure that our retirees see this.
Yeah.
So our second retiree, I want to extend congratulations to somebody who I've gotten to know really well over the past couple of years. That's Patty Toller. So Patty is an administrative assistant at Gildersleeve. Patty was originally born in Glastonbury, but she spent 23 years living here in Portland and raised her family here in Portland. Both of her children went through our school district and graduated from Portland High School in 2004 and 2009. So Patty spent the majority of her adult life here in Portland, and the first half of her career she worked for Aetna and then raised her children. And then in 1998, we originally hired Patty as a special education paraprofessional at Gildersleeve. She worked as a paraprofessional for 9 years at Gildersleeve. And then in 2007, she became Gildersleeve's administrative assistant working with Eileen Katz and has been in that position ever since. She is the heartbeat of Gildersleeve. Again, I asked Patty what her fondest memories are, or if she had any recollections or thoughts. She laughed again. And again, she reflected on how Portland is a wonderful place to raise a family and live and work. And not much has changed according to Patty too. Things are really, really stable here, and people are very happy, and it's a great place. She did share, of course, some thoughts about how she's really enjoyed things like Nature's Classroom, the butterfly garden which we heard about at one of our reports here. She was instrumental in bringing the Brain Show to Gildersleeve and all of those things that made her job so much fun. She also spent some time talking about Portland's rich history, and she loved working at Gildersleeve and made it a point every year to get in those classrooms and go on the tours whenever the kids were out learning about the history in town and the quarry and the shipbuilders. And she's learned a lot about the history of Portland through her time here at Gildersleeve, and she loves it. So Patty is looking forward to a little less stress in life, some more carefree experiences, and of course she plans to spend a lot of time with her family, hiking, and on some new adventures. So for 24 years of service, I know I extend all of our congratulations and appreciation to Patty Toller. Then, of course, what would we be if we didn't spend a moment reflecting on Carl Johnson's career? Right? Carl is an institution, I think, here in Portland. He is a gentleman, and he's the kind of guy that comes along in a town literally, potentially once in a generation. Carl was born in Middletown in 1962 and was raised his entire life here in Portland. His parents are lifelong residents in Portland. He, of course, raised his family here in Portland. Interesting, Carl went to Gildersleeve for grades pre-K to 5, Brownstone, grades 6 through 8, and high school and for grades 9 through 12. Carl graduated Portland High School in 1980, and in the fall of 1980, right after he graduated, he took a job with the Portland Public Works, September of 1980, that same year. From 1983 to 1988, Carl worked as a full-time Portland police officer and part-time with the Portland Parks and Recreation Department. And then in 1988, he left the police department to work full-time for the board as our groundskeeper, and eventually that became a shared board and town position. Right. He held that for a long time. And then I guess I would say reluctantly, Carl stepped up to become the Buildings and Grounds Director in 2018. I think it took Phil to do some pretty good arm twisting. And I don't know that Carl necessarily came looking for that job, but he was the perfect guy for it. Right? And I think he's just done an absolutely remarkable job for us ever since then. Ask Carl again how things have changed here in Portland. He too laughed and kind of said, not much. Things here have always been wonderful. It's a very stable community, and he did reflect a little bit on how technology and the pace of life has picked up, but overall he feels like Portland is just home, has been home, and largely remains that. I know Carl is looking forward to spending some time with his 5 grandchildren. 2 of his grandkids are second grade students at Gildersleeve, and his other grandkids are across the bridge over in Middletown. Carl and his wife Debbie have. It's all right. So Carl and his wife Debbie have dedicated over 90 years of service to the Portland Public Schools. Again, they are an institution. They've built a beautiful life here. They have a beautiful new home in town. I know Carl is looking forward to making that yard even more spectacular than it already is, if possible. And then he's looking forward to spending some time potentially on an RV excursion, fly fishing, hunting, golfing, all the things we all aspire to do when we retire. So for 42 years of service, I congratulate Carl and wish him all the best of luck. I'm going to miss him dearly, especially on those cold mornings when I'm trying to make a decision about whether to open schools or delay or do all of those things. He's been right there, and he's never given me bad advice. So please join me in congratulating Carl.
Okay, we'll move on then to the Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Technology report.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education, Dr. Britton. The technology on my end is a little bit glitchy, so I can't currently see you guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Gotcha, yep.
Yeah, it's not on your end. I think it's on our end.
Okay. So in light of what I know is a lengthy board agenda, Dr. Britton asked me to keep my comments to 90 seconds, which, please. But I'll be very quick. So first, I just want to thank John White. He presented on the triennial wellness assessment. He really did yeoman's work with that very important report for the state and getting the administrative team to cooperate and get him the information that he needed, and we're really thankful.
Oh no.
Oh, boy.
The second update is just quickly regarding our state standardized testing for the spring season. That includes the school day SAT for Portland High School, the next generation science standards assessment for students in grades 5, 8, and 11, and the Smarter Balance assessment of literacy and mathematics for all students in grades 3 through 8. I'm proud to announce that we are fully through state standardized testing at this time, and that we have well exceeded the 95% participation threshold for our accountability with the state. In terms of our student results and that data, the Board of Education can look forward to a comprehensive data presentation for how each of our schools perform on those assessments in the fall. Next item, I want to update the board that I've spoken previously at length about our partnership with the School-Based Diversion Initiative, a grant-funded opportunity with the aims of reducing exclusionary disciplinary practices in our secondary schools. We are awarded $43,000 in grant money this year through SBDI, and we've used a good chunk of that grant money to secure a social emotional learning curriculum for Portland High School. It's called School Connect, and it will be delivered led by the school counseling staff through our advisory program at Portland High School. So this represents now a complete social emotional learning curriculum in place for grades K through 12. Earlier this year, we purchased second step curriculum for grades K through 8. Second step isn't something we felt developmentally appropriate for students in high school, so we looked for a different program and it'll be less than 20-minute lessons delivered through advisory. Update there. Next item of business. We're thrilled to announce that I had put out a call for summer curriculum writing hours. We had budgeted 300 hours in next year's LEA budget. That was passed as part of the budget. And then I put out the call for teachers to submit requests on how to fill those hours and a couple district opportunities, specific work we would do if teachers were interested. We had over 65 applicants. So 65 Portland Public Schools teachers feel so strongly about advancing curriculum and instruction at the high school that they're applying for summer writing hours, even after what has been, an exceptionally exhausting school year due to the pandemic. So I'm in the process right now of sifting through those applications and notifying teachers of awarded hours. But again, just 65 applicants representative of the incredible commitment of our teaching faculty. In the fall, I've already indicated in previous reports that we're preparing for some public rollout components in Atlas, which is our district curriculum hosting platform. We are still looking very good for that rollout and to make some key components of our district curriculum available to the public for the first time. Those will include course descriptions, unit overviews with your own courses, pacing calendars, what we call essential questions, and enduring understandings. And as we roll that out, we'll have some educational components and opportunities for families as well, so that they know what they're looking at and what our overall curriculum. And then we'll also at that time be able to tell them a timeline for the next phase of the curriculum. And then, that all kind of speaks to my final item. I know that Dr. Britton included in his report this week the reflection on our board goals for 21-22. Of the 5 board goals, I have a significant hand in goals 2, 3, and 4, which dealt with social, emotional learning and well-being, curriculum and instruction, and advancing equity and social justice as well as those schools. I was happy to help Dr. Britton craft the reflection on those goals. And I'm really proud of the work that we've accomplished this year and the dedication of our staff to get this done. So as we look towards the end of the school year next week, it feels like it's been a very successful school year. I think we're well positioned for great work ahead this year, and I think we're really continuing to support. That's my update for tonight. I'm going to take any questions.
Any questions?
Eric, hi. I was hoping we were going to hear a little bit tonight about plans for summer learning this summer. I don't know that we really got any updates yet about what the district plans are, how things are going, what's in place with numbers of students, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so I can quickly talk about that. We had a very successful batch of summer learning offerings last summer, so much so that the idea was to run back our exact same offering. So what that looks like is with a couple of adjustments. So for students entering grades 1 through 5, we have an in-person intervention and enrichment program that will be operating out of Gildersleeve. Valley View teacher Amy Steino, who applied for the position of site supervisor, will be serving in that role. Jessica Bruin and Ryan Wallstrom have been reaching out to families and recruiting students into that program based on demonstrated need through assessment and achievement data. And then we have a very similar offering at Portland Middle School for students entering grades 6 through 9. That program will be staffed by Krista Larson. And Principal Hershon and Principal Hine have been doing the same thing, reaching out to families. Those are, again, kind of hand-recruited programs for students based on demonstrated need. Our universal program for all students is our online summer enrichment program. That's for all students entering grades 1 through 9. That program is will be supervised once again by Corey Toussaint and Alicia Miller. They developed that program 4 years ago. I think this will be its 4th year running. We've had great success with it. We cut it down from, it used to run through the high school, but we weren't seeing high levels of participation at the high school. Teenagers' lives are a little bit different in the summer. A lot of our students are working or have sports or other opportunities. Our high school students still are afforded academic opportunities from their teachers and from assignments. And We will not be offering credit recovery at Portland High School this year. We offered it last year. It had very limited need for it. Historically, we've offered credit recovery through Middletown Public Schools. We weren't able to do that last year because of COVID. They're now accepting Portland students again back in their buildings for credit recovery as needed. And then, of course, Don Davis continues to run our extended school year program for students with special needs in grades 3 through 12. That was really quick. I don't know more enough information.
No, that was great. I really appreciate it. I don't know if you have numbers on you, but I would love to know approximately how many students are being served at the Gildersleeve program and at the Portland Middle School program.
Yeah, so we're actually finalizing those numbers now. And what I'll do is we'll include that in the board report packet ahead of the next meeting, and I'll send that out to the board just as an email attachment as soon as it's available.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to new business. We have some policies to review. Did you want to?
Sure, I can take you
Take
through
us
the first three are first reading ones. The policy committee met and reviewed these. These are all mandated, right? These are the ones that, as we get the policy updates, they reflect the laws that were passed in the last session, and all three of these do reflect mandated changes. They're all very similar. The first one just talks about, and we don't have this problem in Portland, and Katie's here. She kind of looked at this policy and was like, yeah, no problem. That's, the best policies are the ones that you're already doing. This really discourages schools from putting roadblocks in terms of recommendations or tracking or leveling that might keep students from accessing higher level courses. That is not a problem at Portland Middle School or Portland High School. Students are encouraged to take the highest courses that that are available to them. Certainly teachers make recommendations, but those recommendations aren't red lines that we otherwise exclude students from. So Kate's reviewed this policy with me and with Eric and the counselors, and we have no problem making sure that all of our students are never excluded from any courses, but otherwise would be encouraged and supported in taking courses at the highest possible level. Kate, did you want to add anything to that? It's just what we do, right? You know, and I gotta say, that's very different here in Portland than other districts I've worked in the past, where lots of teachers have worked proactively to keep students out of advanced placement courses who otherwise not be perceived as able. That cost me 8 years of my life to fight that battle. Trust me, I'd be happy to talk to you about it sometime. I didn't win it, but it was delightful to get here and see the culture and climate that Kate has engendered at the high school, and that is not an issue at all. So this policy didn't fall like a lead balloon in Portland. It fell like, oh, we got that, we do it already. So very comfortable with that policy, and happy to move forward to second if you're comfortable with it. The second policy, challenging curriculum policy. We have a very challenging curriculum. This just establishes a board expectation that we continue to have a challenging curriculum. It also establishes an expectation that particularly in grade 8 and 9, we work proactively to identify students who have the potential to excel in advanced courses. We are already doing that informally very much through grades and the work of our counselors in terms of identifying students and putting them on a pathway to advanced placement and honors level courses at the high school level. This policy will encourage us to do that a little bit more formally. I've already had conversations with Chuck Hirschon and Kate and Eric and I. We're very well positioned and prepared to do that. We'll work with the middle school counselor and the high school counselors to make sure that as we do reviews of student performance each year, we wrap that into our student success plans and the work we do with students to counsel them through matriculating through the high school program at the highest level possible. So again, a policy I'm very comfortable with, just kind of formalizes and crystallizes some of the things we do already. And then the final mandated policy change here is that we need to have a process for identifying gifted and talented students. What's interesting about this policy is it doesn't require that we have a gifted and talented program, but it does require us to work proactively with parents and teachers to potentially identify students as talented and gifted. We do that already. The way we've been doing that historically in Portland is through the PPT process. So if a parent or a teacher identifies a student as particularly gifted or talented in a certain area, we certainly have a process in place with Dawn and our PPT teams to identify that student. Now within that, once we identify students who are talented and gifted, our teachers work very hard to differentiate their instruction within the classroom to meet students at all ability levels. So to the extent that we're able to enrich students' programming with materials, resources, reading, and enriching activities, we can do that. I'm not going to recommend that we create a tag program. This policy doesn't require us to do that. There's a lot of research about talented and gifted programs, specifically as it reflects equity issues in the district, but they're also very expensive, and they siphon off some resources for a relatively small number of students. I prefer that we stick with the differentiation route. This policy enables us to do that, but we do have to have a process now for identifying talented and gifted students. We already have that process. This will just set it in policy. So policy committee members, did I explain that pretty much?
Absolutely.
Those will be on for second reading at our next meeting.
Correct.
Okay. Next is appointment of Portland Secondary Schools Assistant Principal, which we will be discussing in executive session, as we will discuss the HDHP overpayments and ratification of the bargaining unit contracts for the paraprofessionals and
It's the secretaries.
Administrative
assistants,
Admin
yeah.
assistants, yeah.
Admin
Okay,
assistants,
so,
yeah.
items B, C, and D will be discussed in executive session, and we'll move on to old business. First is the Board of Education Policy 6115.3, flag display policy.
So we made a couple tweaks to the language on that. One was about, I think, gender. Was that another one? Is that the gender one that we?
No, that was the
that-
first reading of the
Thank you,
current
that was first
policy.
reading of the other
This was just to
policy.
add the language about the United States flag in that second sentence in the third paragraph.
Right, okay. Otherwise, this is a policy to remind everybody that really sets the expectation that in terms of the flags that we fly on the flag poles in front of our schools, it will be the flag of the United States, Connecticut state flag, Town of Portland flag, and other flags of institutional significance, which we interpret to be if Portland High School were to develop a Portland High School flag, that would be it. So, but we're not going to be in the business of other nations or other flags. I think that this kind of narrows the focus. I understand people's desire, and certainly there are many flags that I support in spirit, but I think that this really gets us to a place where we identify those four flags as the ones that are going to go up the flagpoles. And then in terms of ways to recognize other groups or individuals or positions, there are other ways to do that without using our flagpoles for that speech.
Is there a motion?
I move that we approve policy P6115.3, flag policy.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. Meg
Okay.
Scott.
Any further discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. District Resource Officer discussion. This is under old business, but it's really not.
Yeah, that should be
Old
new
business.
business, yeah. All right,
That
let
should
me,
be.
well, I guess it is because the board has discussed it in the past, so it's kind of coming back, where you come back as new business, so.
It was a
Old
different board.
business,
It was
yeah,
a different board.
Yeah, all right. So,
Anyway.
let me put a little frame on this. So, Kate is here, and I'm here. We certainly are able to answer any questions in very broad terms about the possibility of creating a district resource officer, a dedicated police officer whose strict assignment would be to the Portland Public Schools, to all 5 of our schools. In order for us to do this, it's going to require a lot of work, right? We would have to develop a memorandum of understanding with the town and the Portland Police Department. We'd have to develop a policy with all of the, how do I say, granular details of who the person would be, how the person would be selected, how the person would be evaluated, what the person's role would be. Would the person be in teaching DARE programs or in classrooms? You know, there's a lot that would go into the job description that would be vetted through an MOU with the Portland Police Department and a policy. And of course, that we would have to work out the financial arrangements. How would we pay, what portion of the salary, or would it be required to be all of it, would be paid for this position. Kate and I have had this discussion, and we think now is an important opportunity to open the conversation with the board and get a sense from the board about the willingness and desire for Kate and I to go forward with our new assistant principal to explore this. I can certainly answer questions generally, but if there are specific questions, like, for example, would the police officer wear a bulletproof vest? Right, I can't answer that specific question, but that would be worked out in a memorandum of understanding and working conditions that we could ask to be discussed, right? So I think that there are two things I'd like to hear from the board tonight. What questions would you need answered in order to feel comfortable with a district resource officer? Certainly I could take those questions and bring them back to, whether it's through policy or through the personnel committee, and have them answered. And then, is it worth my time and Kate's time to go and engage the Portland Police Department and the town and Stephanie for the financial side to explore this? Now, full transparency, I strongly support this. And in my opinion, the time is right for this because we have a vacancy in the school security guard position. So I would see this as potentially replacing a school security guard with a district resource officer, which opens a funding stream for the position. So we haven't filled that position yet, and if we moved in this direction, I would suggest that we don't, and instead re-earmark that funding to pay for part of this. And of course, in light of all of our efforts to improve school security this year, I see this as a very valuable potential next step for us to continue to enhance security in our schools. And of course, with recent events in Texas, I think it is important for us to have this conversation about how a district resource officer might help us better prepare and respond to any number of incidents that our schools confront. So with that said, I would open the conversation, and what I'm really looking for is feedback from the board. Is this something you would like me to go forward and pursue? No commitments tonight, no votes, just Charles, you have our blessing, go do the work, come back to us with the details and the ideas and the explanations, and I would go do that. Or is this something that the board is absolutely not interested in, and I will find other ways to spend my time, right? Now, that said, Kate's here to answer questions, I'm here to answer questions. It's something I strongly support, and I would welcome the opportunity to do this work.
So the first two things that come to my mind are, I think the board needs additional information as to the entire security plan for the district. And you've touched on policy questions and financial questions, but you haven't told us why you think we need a police officer. What is the need? That's what I want to hear about before we even got to the second level of how we pay for it and what the policies are going to be. Why do we need it?
And to piggyback off of that, I was going to ask, what's the differentiator between what we had and what you're asking for? What did the other position do that this position is going to do differently, or the need for it?
I think I would also, to piggyback off Dave, I would want actual hard data on how an SRO increases school safety, not just objective, I had a great experience with an officer kind of deal.
Stacey?
I kind of had the same questions as Dave, just asking the difference between, the current, I think from what I understand, the school security officer was primarily at the high school. I don't know how much district-wide work was done there, but I would just need to know a little bit more about that.
Tim?
I think, Dave's question is good. I mean, I was on the board when we did this activity before.
Yep.
So I've had conversations about this, and I feel it comes down to a budgetary issue. Where are we going to get the money for that? Because because you're actually adding to the police force in the town of Portland. I don't know if people understand that or not, but it's actually a certified police officer that's stationed at the town of Portland, which is posted to the school system in some manner that's worked out in a policy discussion between the two. So there's a myriad of ways that this could be approached, and that's where the issue is how do you secure, and it really would be an officer who would be available to the town of Portland during the day. There wouldn't be any policy that you could say that that officer, whatever their duties to the school system, wouldn't be responsible to report to town of Portland issues as well. So there's just a lot of moving parts there to figure
Well,
out.
And kind of just to jump up, sorry.
It's all right, go ahead.
Would there be any cost sharing with the town? I mean, if this isn't gonna be an officer posted exclusively to the schools, would there be any cost sharing? Meg, your thoughts?
Well, we did have this conversation before. I think we need to know, I think it's timely, and I think Charles has every right to explore the need for an SRO, a security officer, a safety person, but I think we need to know how it fits into the overall scheme of school safety. I think parents are going to want to know going into the fall, coming back to school, what we're doing to protect kids. And if, in fact, an SRO or a police officer enhances our safety, our safety and security ability, then we should go for it. But I think there are gaps in our building facilities that lend itself to insecurity. So I think a comprehensive look at the entire package, including an officer, would be a good way to go. And I think this is a very big discussion because we have to ensure the safety and security of our kids. And we have to let the community know that we can take action if we ever need to. And I would also say the mental health component here, we know who the shooters potentially could be. And we know that when you hit a hornet's nest, the hornets come flying out. So disciplinary actions, mental health components all have to come into play in an overall plan for security of all of our buildings, whether it's kindergarten through or preschool through grade 12. So I'd like to have a long discussion about it and look at a lot of things, policy, discipline policies, and all of that.
Laurel?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing a lot of things that I'm agreeing with here. I absolutely agree with Meg that I would like for us to have a more robust conversation about safety in our schools and what all we're doing currently and where there was room for improvement. I would like to hear tonight from Charles or Kate about what you think the benefit would be from an SRO, from employing an SRO, because I have to say I have the same concerns tonight that I had 3 years ago when we had this conversation, and they focus primarily around, as Tim brought up, the financial issues, and also around my awareness that there is no research or data that backs up the idea that an SRO increases safety in school buildings. And my awareness that there is additional data that does show that armed police officers in buildings create an environment that can be unsafe for students of color. So those are my concerns. I also want to just bring up, you brought up the idea of a cost-sharing model with the town, and I know that that's something that Charles mentioned in a policy or a personnel meeting, I forget which. But I have to say that I have a concern there as well, that any taxpayer money that is additional money going towards a security person in our schools is coming from somewhere in a town, in a community that runs a really tight ship with our budget. Whether that money is coming from our Board of Ed budget or our town budget, ultimately we will feel the impact of those additional dollars. So I have a lot of concerns. I have to say it's not something that I am feeling particularly strong support for. I would be happy to hear if you have some, I would be happy to hear more in this moment about why you think this is important.
I guess my one other question would just be in relationship to the size of our town, the number of students that we have, obviously the number of buildings may you know, who knows what will happen in the future. But is there any data showing, you know, other towns, other, you know, just kind of looking at bigger size and all of that?
One more thing for me too. So I think we mentioned, you know, where are the holes, where are the gaps, what problems are we trying to solve by hiring an SRO versus just replacing a security guard? And additionally, what would alternative solutions be for the same problems?
That's you, Kate.
Usually you get to answer them as they're asked.
That's right, no,
She's like.
I don't think that the board is prepared to have a long,
Yeah.
detailed conversation tonight. It's just, you know, a little brainstorming
Yeah, that's it.
of issues that we would like to see addressed.
Let me see if I can paraphrase here, right? You have a lot of questions, and we can start to answer some of these, right? And certainly, I know Kate's chomping at the bit, and so am I. Like, let's go. And you know, I don't know. I think that what we're going to need at some point is a very detailed conversation, and we got to schedule it for some time. But what I'd like your blessing tonight to do, and I understand I'm your superintendent, I can go do it anyway, right? I mean, Tim has reminded me of that, but I don't want to get ahead of you, right? I want to say, if I can answer all of these questions poignantly and with data, research, evidence, a financial package, policy position, and a memorandum of agreement with the town that makes sense, that is compelling, that Kate and I convince you, dots all the i's, crosses all the t's, and creates a safer place for our schools, I'm hearing the minds are open to approving it. So
I think it's our obligation
Right.
to always have an open mind to look into different ways and additional ways to safeguard the students.
100%. So I see this conversation, I think Kate does too, is doors open, go do your homework, Charles, go have the conversations, work with Kate, work with the town, work with Stephanie on the financial side, look at policies, investigate what other towns are doing, look at memorandums of agreement, some of which I have written in other towns. I have a pretty deep understanding of a lot of this stuff because I lived it. I've done this work before. I'm really excited about it because I know what it takes, and I know how powerful and positive the effect can be. And I think Kate and I've got all the questions, and I know there are going to be a lot more, but I think what you can expect Kate and I will be doing over the coming weeks and summer. You know, summer's a great time to do these things because you don't have hundreds of kids to keep an eye on too, right? That I'm looking forward to doing some of this work, coming back to you with some ideas to do it. Now, my suggestion would be, let me do some of this work through the Personnel Committee, specifically with respect to the memorandum of agreement and that side of it, and the Policy Committee, because there's lots of different types of policies we could look at. There's many different model policies. So if I could start to iron out some of the details through those committees, and then come back to the board this summer with a fully vetted, fleshed out proposal, then I think we might, advance the conversation.
In my mind, you're putting the cart before the horse. Tell us why we need it.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what we need to hear.
That's my big
We need to
question.
know why we need it.
Yeah.
Yep. And I guess in order to answer that question, I would suggest that we have, it would have to be an executive session meeting, but we need to know more about what's the security measures in place now? How are they enhanced by this? So I don't know if that's something we could do at our our next meeting, or if it needs to be a specially scheduled meeting with just executive session to discuss these things. But before anything gets directed to policy or personnel, I would want to hear that. I don't know if what the rest of the board thinks.
I agree, Sharon.
but-
I completely agree,
Yeah.
Sharon.
Okay. All right, then why?
Well, wait, we didn't hear from everybody yet. Tim?
Well, I was hopeful to hear from Kate, give her, elevator speech to us on why she thinks this is important. And I'm not opposed to the policy or personnel looking at it, but I agree, and I think maybe that's the conversation. That's what I think we might hear from Kate right now. Why is this a better thing to have an SRO than to have a security officer. What, you know, and maybe we can't get into the full depth of it.
Right.
But there should be a surface there we could reach to get an idea of that. Because if you guys have put a lot of time, I mean, I just see Charles, you know, he's a very, he's advocating for this. He feels it's an important thing. As our superintendent of schools, I have a lot of respect for his opinion about these things. And if he thinks we should really attend to this and put some attention on it, then we should. And I think, as I said in our committee meeting, it's a perfectly reasonable thing when I have a lot of respect for an administrator or anybody who, when a position becomes vacant, that the first thing you don't think about is, let's fill this.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing you think about is, how do we still need this in the version it is now? Is this, can we do something different with this? How is this still meeting our needs? This is a decision point opportunity to make some change and to, right, and maybe pivot. Say, well, let's do something different. And then we get into all the whys, and I think that's my feeling.
Meg?
I think that the exploration should begin based on our questions. I think elevator speeches are great, and I've come not full circle, but I've certainly come closer to mid-center about SROs, having heard some anecdotal messaging from Glastonbury and AI Prince in Hartford, people that work with SROs and have said wonderful things about who they have. But I think we could hear why they're good, bad, or otherwise, but I think we need to know, and Charles needs to tell us where are the gaps and how this particular position is going to help us to ensure the safety of our kids. And I think that's really the biggest question right now. Whether we agree that they're good or bad is really irrelevant, or why we should have one is irrelevant. And we should know what the district needs are and how that will help and enhance. And it may not be a police officer, it might be a safety security expert. None of us are safety and security experts. I don't know what it takes to secure a building, and I know it takes more than a gun, because we know guns and police haven't always performed in the way that they should. So let's have the comprehensive, what does Portland need right now? What are the concerns? And let's be able to assure parents and students and teachers they will be safe, because we've looked at all of the issues and we know what we need to do in Portland. So I give Charles my blessing. I think he has every right to examine it and then come back to us and tell us if that's a fit, then tell us why. And we'll have the reason, the data. And I know that's a lot of work, but I think that, and this is timely for all of the reasons that are in the news these days.
I agree with Sharon that I'd like to see us have a more in-depth conversation about the need for this.
And then I'm agreeing with what you're saying
Yeah,
also.
but I would like
district
to
needs.
have that conversation as a board before we dive into any committee work, because I agree that it seems like putting the cart before the horse.
Any additional thoughts?
My only is, I have a concern that, and don't take offense to Charles, but once he says, I'm all for this, I think the guardrails are on, and I don't know if we're gonna get all the available options.
Yeah.
That's one of my concerns, along with, I also make sure we wanna have something in place before the next school year.
Right.
You talk about working on it over the summer, that's not gonna leave a lot of time, so.
So, would you be prepared to address some of the why questions in executive session at our next meeting, which is what, the 21st? Could you come back, Kate? Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, why don't we start there, and then, it's 2 weeks.
Yep.
Can go from there.
I had to check, is this an executive session a bold thing, or either way? I mean,
I think school security
I think
must
it
be.
has
school
to be.
security, yeah, you know what?
It must be.
Because if it's school security, I can show you what we're doing, so.
And honestly, just to add, I feel like for me, I need to really see a comprehensive picture of not just where the gaps and the holes are, but where this fits in terms of and also what else can be done. Not I don't want to just look at an SRO, and to me, that's not the only question that needs to be answered. How else can we make our schools safe? I think we need a broad school safety conversation.
I do too. Okay, so we'll put that on for our June 21st meeting. as a matter to be discussed in executive session, and put it down as maybe an action item after executive session in terms of direction, giving direction to the superintendent and Kate. Okay, superintendent of schools evaluation will be discussed in our extremely long executive session, as will his contract and our self-evaluation. Committee reports. Stacy, would you like to report on curriculum?
Sure. So we had a brief meeting today. We had a couple people that were not able to attend. So there were 3 items that Eric just did for informational purposes. Kate, you were, the first was, I'm trying to remember now because those notes were in my other. French textbooks.
Possibility of supporting capstone students with a course.
That's right, the possibility of supporting capstone students with a capstone course. And the third was the midterm and final exams that were going to no longer be required. But Kate's not prepared to speak to that until open house, but we wanted to have a brief discussion from an informational standpoint as to the reason for that, so that if there were questions that came up. Sorry,
That's
it was
it?
a quick
No,
meeting.
you
There was
got
a
it,
few things.
Policy?
Do you want me to give an update since we missed the last one?
You can go ahead.
Okay, I'll just jump in that we discussed the 3 policies that were required that we saw for first reading tonight. We did take had an initial conversation about the wellness policy. We are aware that it needs updating and intend to be working on that in the near future. I believe Charles put this in his weekly update, but there are the therapy dog policy that we're waiting on a second reading for will be coming up in the future. It's on hold because he was waiting to hear back from Rebecca and Karma. So we'll be discussing that in the future.
We got
it from Rebecca,
yeah.
not from Karma.
Yes, we did.
Yep.
So you'll be hearing from the policy committee about that in the future. And then the drone policy as well is on hold as Eric and Meg are working to that. But I believe that covers all of it.
And the meeting for this week is canceled until further notice, till after school ends.
Building and grounds?
No meeting? No, there's nothing scheduled right now.
Okay, CREC liaison?
I will be attending the CREC meeting on June 16th, and there's a budget meeting tomorrow at noontime.
Board of Selectmen?
Nothing significant, very short meeting, but the highlight was the transfer station summer hours.
What are they? What are the summer hours?
Well, they're gonna be open later on, like a Tuesday night, and they're gonna be open less on a Saturday because they're figuring people wanna come. They tried an experiment,
Right.
and it seemed to have been
People were
very
very upset.
popular.
Oh, I thought people were upset about the reduction of hours, weren't they?
Some were, but
Okay,
more people
all
are
right.
using it out.
There's
You're
always
never
people.
gonna, you're never
Never
gonna make
please
everybody
everyone.
happy. More people, he went by the utilization rather than the comment.
Perfect.
Yeah. So more utilization in the evening, less on Saturday?
Later Saturday.
Oh,
Later.
good.
Oh, okay.
Makes sense.
You know what I mean?
Okay. Committee on Solidarity?
They meet the 14th of June is their next meeting. I think the last meeting was May 10th.
Okay. Equity and Inclusion Coalition?
We had our last meeting of the year in May, and our next one should be in September.
School Facilities Study Committee?
I know you started your
Yep,
focus group.
I will report on that. Yeah, so Lou and I have a plan. So we're going to visit all of the faculties and the PTOs before the end of June. We've scheduled a series of parent focus groups in July, and then we're going to do town community groups, Lions Club, Senior Centers, Historical Society in August. So our goal is to get on the road, gather feedback from everybody about the ideas that the Facility Study Committee has been kicking around this year, then get back to the Facility Study Committee sometime in September and put a report together. By the way, the Board of Selectmen have granted us an extension. You know, June was our deadline. They've given us till the fall. we want to get this done right and put together a brilliant report for the Board of Ed and Board of Selectmen.
Are you
I-
also, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Meg.
Are you planning to survey the Board of Ed in terms of what our schools will be, should be looking like? Are we part of a focus group? Have you added that, have you thought about adding this in?
You're going to be more than a focus group.
Right, I realize
Yeah,
that,
you-
but yeah.
Right, okay.
We should have some input, and also maybe look at that slide deck of what the vision.
Yep.
Okay.
For sure. I think that you would fall in with then the community groups that were out for in August.
Right, okay,
So-
all right, okay, good. Also, the meeting for June 14th is canceled, and the next meeting for this Facilities Study Committee is June 27th.
Correct.
Youth Services Advisory Board.
So last meeting, I was unable to attend the last minute, but they were doing a lot of brainstorming, just really kind of focused around the age group 11 to 14, you know, really looking at programming and things that would reach out to those youth of that age. There's trying to look at the best forum. You know, they have done a lot of Zoom sessions and things, and there just haven't been a great deal of attendance, so really trying to brainstorm and look at the best format. They are participating in the library celebration on Saturday, so the youth services is doing rock painting at the library celebration. They did start a Wednesday board game after school, and today actually started, I saw the flyer for it, it was cute. It was a drop in and draw. So like a nice, just another opportunity to kind of be creative and draw, color. I don't know. As an adult, I love to color. So I don't know. And the focus was on, there's a new flyer that came out called The Bridge, and kind of highlighting programs initially for senior services, but that youth services is going to be adding to that, as well as Park and Rec. So kind of everything could be in one place.
That's great. How old do you have to be to drop in and draw?
I know. I want to drop in and draw.
Any age.
Any age, there's
Yeah.
no age requirement. He had
Okay.
adult equipment there as well, so,
Cool.
adult painting and drawing objects. He
Audiences?
also was doing little hikers at the park once on Fridays with the toddlers, and it's been very
Catch a break with the
successful.
weather.
I know, and I said, "Don't go in the rain," but Friday's his next event.
Can I just add one thing that wasn't quickly covered by the Board of Selectmen? That's the transfer of the track money. Right, so did you want to update Dave on that? Do you want to update the board on that? Do you want me to?
I didn't meet the public hearing earlier, I was at the meeting.
Oh, okay, so the Board of Selectmen, it's important for everybody to know, did transfer $250,000 to help us supplement the $500,000 that we're getting from the state for the track. So, thank you to the Board of Selectmen, that's huge, and we are on a glide path now. So we are interviewing architect firms Friday, and we have, Dave wasn't able, but Meg, you're going to be
Yes,
helping
I
join
will.
us. And
That's great.
one of the questions we're now going to be able to ask is, how much and how quick can you get it done? So, very excited.
Can I ask, Charles, has there been any question of putting in a turf field?
No.
No.
No. Turf fields would be most practical if you had a football team practicing on it. So
Soccer
soccer
likes them more.
is less destructive than the gridiron. So,
That's great.
Okay, audience of citizens? Board member comments? Tim?
No, I'm all set.
Meg?
No.
Laurel?
Nothing except just, I said this last month, I'll say it again as a little reminder. Saturday is the Portland Library celebration of the 125th +2 anniversary. You are all invited. I hope you can come and attend. We have a couple of Portland High School students lined up to sing during our program that we're really excited to have them. And it's going to be a really wonderful celebration. So I hope you'll all come out and join us.
Lauren?
I guess I just have a question about, with the gifted and talented identification, I guess I'm wondering how many students in the district we presently have identified as gifted and talented? And then, does our district require some sort of differentiation or enrichment Or is it just that they're going to be identified?
Why don't I let Dawn answer that at her next report?
That's a good idea.
Sounds good.
Dave, any comments?
Nothing? No?
Stacy?
Just had the pleasure of attending the high school awards a couple weeks ago, and then the 8th grade awards tonight for most of it, but I had to get here, so I couldn't stay for the special awards. And I just remember when my girls were in school and how, just fun that was, and I just really appreciated, the opportunity to be part of it, so.
Right.
I just want to remind the board that graduation is Monday. We're all invited, and I hope we all can make it. I'll be there. Okay. Is there a motion to go into executive session? And we're inviting superintendent and
Stephanie,
Ms. Stephanie
and we're gonna invite Frank.
and Mr.
I'll make
Cordona.
that motion to go into executive session and invite Dr. Britton and Stephanie Fagola and I was gonna.
Frank Cardone.
Frank Cardone, I'm sorry.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night,
Good night, Kate.
Thank you for coming, Kate.
Meg and then Tim.
Thank you.